The massive ships appeared on a Tuesday morning. They came without warning. 7 enormous vessels that blotted out the sun as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. People stopped in the streets to stare upward, phones recording the moment that humanity learned it was not alone in the universe. Commander Allison West was in the middle of her morning briefing when the alarm sounded. All military bases across the globe went to high alert as unidentified objects entered Earth's airspace. But there was no attack, no immediate threat. Just the silent hovering of ships larger than cities. "Get me visual," she ordered, and the screens in the command center filled with images from satellites and ground cameras. The ships did not match any known design. They floated above major cities: New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, New Delhi, Cairo, and Sao Paulo, seemingly waiting. Their hulls were smooth with strange patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "Are we responding?" asked Lieutenant Frank Miller, his hand steady on the weapons console despite the tension in his voice. Allison shook her head. "Not yet. They haven't made a move. President Clark has ordered all forces to stand down unless directly threatened. It took 8 hours before the aliens made contact, not with weapons but with a message broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English and every other major Earth language. People of Earth, we come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Council, a federation of 312 species united in harmony and mutual advancement. We invite your world to join our community of civilizations." The voice was smooth and pleasant, carefully designed to put humans at ease. Teams of linguists and psychologists analyzed every word, while world leaders debated how to respond. Allison found herself pulled from her command post to attend an emergency meeting at the White House. As one of the youngest commanders in the North American Defense Coalition, she had earned a reputation for seeing patterns others missed. President Clark looked tired already, though the crisis was less than a day old. "Commander West, I want your assessment. Not the official line. Your gut feeling." Allison studied the footage playing on the wall screen. Delegates from the ships now meeting with representatives from the United Nations. The aliens were tall, with skin that shifted colors slightly as they moved. Their 7 eyes blinked in patterns rather than all at once. "Sir, they're being careful to appear non-threatening. Notice how they keep their upper limbs visible at all times, how they match their speaking pace to whoever they're talking to. It's calculated." "Of course it's calculated," said Defense Secretary Baldwin. "They're diplomats." "It's more than that," Allison insisted. "Everything they've shown us so far feels like it was designed based on study. They knew exactly which cities to position their ships over for maximum psychological impact without creating panic. They broadcast in languages with perfect cultural nuances that would take years to master. They've been watching us for a long time." President Clark nodded slowly. "And what does that tell you?" "That we're not negotiating from a position of equality, sir. They know us. We know nothing about them except what they choose to show." Over the next 3 weeks, representatives from the Galactic Council met with Earth's leaders. They offered technological advances, medical knowledge, and access to resources from across the galaxy. In exchange, they asked Earth to formally join the Council, accept their governance structure, and provide a modest portion of Earth's resources to support Council operations. Allison attended dozens of these meetings, watching as world leaders grew increasingly excited by the possibilities. She remained quiet, observing the aliens who called themselves the Vera. Their leader, High Minister Zurax, spoke eloquently of peace and cooperation. "For 50,000 years, the Council has brought stability to the galaxy," Zurax explained during one session. "Species that once fought over resources now share them freely. Knowledge flows without restriction. Every world that joins us takes its place in a community greater than any single civilization could achieve alone." It sounded perfect. Too perfect. After one particularly long meeting, President Clark asked Allison to stay behind. "You haven't said much, Commander. The Joint Chiefs are divided on this. I need your honest assessment." Allison chose her words carefully. "Sir, they're offering us the stars, but I think we need to read the fine print." She pointed to specific sections of the treaty document displayed on the table. "They talk about resource sharing, but the percentages are fixed regardless of our Needs. They mention technology transfers but are vague about exactly what technologies. And this section about council governance, there's no clear path for Earth to gain voting representation. President Clark frowned. The High Minister assured me these are standard terms for new members. Once we've integrated with their systems, we'll have more say. With respect, sir, that sounds like trust us without verification. Have we asked to speak with other species who joined recently, to see how their integration went? The President looked uncomfortable. They've explained that direct contact with other member species comes after formal joining. It's their protocol, sir, Allison said firmly. They're offering us a leash, not a partnership. Despite her warnings and those of others who shared her concerns, Earth formally joined the Galactic Council 3 months after first contact. The alternative, remaining isolated in an increasingly crowded galaxy, seemed too risky to most world leaders. The first changes were subtle. Council advisors took positions in major governments. Resources began flowing off-world: metals, water, biological samples. In return, the Council provided limited technological upgrades, improved solar power, more efficient food production, basic medical advances. Allison watched with growing unease as Council bases appeared on every continent, always in locations of strategic or resource value. When she raised concerns about the military implications, she was reassigned to liaison duty, essentially a ceremonial position keeping her away from actual command. During her new role, Allison reconnected with an old squad mate, Dr. Paul Martinez, who had been granted access to study some of the alien technology provided to Earth scientists. They met in a small coffee shop far from any council installation, both careful to leave their official communication devices behind. It's not what they promised, Allie, Paul said quietly, stirring his coffee without drinking it. We're getting their outdated scraps. The stuff they've given us is at least a century behind what they actually use. How can you tell? The integration points, he explained. The technology is designed to work with our systems but not to be easily modified or improved. It's like giving a calculator to someone while keeping quantum computers for yourself. Allison nodded slowly. Have you noticed how they react when one of our scientists tries to modify their tech? Immediate shutdown. It's always for safety reasons. Paul made air quotes with his fingers. But it feels more like control. As Earth completed its first year as a council member, Allison began noticing something else troubling. Other alien species visited Earth as part of council delegations, but their roles seemed strangely limited. The Volsri, large reptilian beings, only ever appeared as security or labor. The bird-like Kuriesh maintained ships but didn't seem to design them. When she managed to speak privately with a Volsri during a diplomatic function, she learned they had been council members for over 3 centuries. Yet they still hadn't gained significant representation in council governance. How many votes does your species have on the High Council? She asked. The Volsri looked at her with ancient eyes. Votes? We serve. That is our honor and purpose. As Allison left the function, she realized with cold clarity what was happening. Humanity wasn't being invited to join a federation of equals. They were being colonized. 2 years passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The initial excitement had faded. Council ships came and went without notice now. Alien beings walking city streets no longer drew crowds. Earth had settled into its new role in the galactic community, but that role was not what many had hoped for. Eric Thompson wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the mining data on his tablet. The Australian outback heat was brutal, but the numbers on his screen troubled him more than the temperature. As chief engineer at the Pilbara mining operation, he oversaw one of Earth's largest resource extraction sites now run under council supervision. These efficiency rates make no sense, he muttered, comparing the council's approved extraction methods to Earth's previous techniques. The alien technology, while more advanced, somehow recovered less usable material while creating more waste. Shadow fell across his tablet. Eric looked up to see the tall, spindly form of Klibnock, the council overseer assigned to the mine. Engineer Thompson, Klibnock said in his clicking accent. The daily quota has not been met. Explain this delay. Eric stood, trying not to show his frustration. I was just reviewing our methods. If we adjusted the extraction pattern here and here, he pointed to his tablet, we could increase yield by at least 40%. Klibnok's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Your methods are not approved by council standards. Continue with the established procedures. But the waste is processed according to council regulations, Klibnok interrupted. Your concern is, noted but unnecessary. Meet the quota, Engineer Thompson. After the overseer left, Eric's assistant Sam Kelly approached. Same answer as always? Yeah, Eric sighed. Use their methods, don't ask questions. Later that night, Eric couldn't sleep. The mining problem gnawed at him. He got up and dressed quietly in the darkness of his small company housing unit. The night shift would be minimal. He could test his theory without interference. An hour later, Eric stood in an abandoned section of the mine, away from the main operation. He had reprogrammed a small extraction unit to use his modified methods. The machine hummed as it processed a test sample of ore. When the results appeared on his tablet, Eric nearly dropped it in shock. The yield was 3 times higher than the council's method with half the waste byproduct. This wasn't just a small improvement. These results would completely change the mine's productivity. Over the next week, he secretly tested his method on different materials with similar results. Finally, Eric prepared a detailed report and requested a meeting with both mine management and the council representatives. This is remarkable work, Thompson, said Operations Director Heather Ross after reviewing his findings. If these numbers are accurate, we could meet our quotas with far less environmental impact. The numbers are solid, Eric confirmed. I've run the tests multiple times. When Klibnok and 2 other council representatives entered the conference room, Eric felt a surge of pride. Surely they would see the value of his work. He was wrong. These methods violate council extraction protocols, Klibnok stated flatly, after a brief review. But they work better, Eric argued, pointing to the test results. Look at the yield increase, the reduction in waste. Your methods might work for Earth resources, another council representative interrupted. But Galactic standards require our approved procedures. Your proposal is denied. Eric couldn't believe what he was hearing. Can you at least tell me why? If there's some technical reason, the decision is final, Klibnok said. Return to your assigned duties, Engineer Thompson. Eric did return to his duties, but he couldn't forget what he had discovered. At night, he continued his experiments, documenting everything. He shared his findings with trusted colleagues at other mining operations. Soon, miners across Australia, then Africa, then North America, were secretly testing his methods. The results were always the same. The council's extraction technology was deliberately inefficient. 6 months after his initial discovery, Eric was working late when security officers, both human and Volsri, entered his office. Eric Thompson, the human officer said stiffly, you are under arrest for unauthorized technological development and interference with council operations. As they led him away, Eric saw Klibnok watching from the shadows, all 4 eyes blinking. In that unsettling sequence, while Eric faced Council Justice, Commander Allison West had been building her own understanding of the alien's true nature. Her ceremonial position as liaison had become an advantage. She was invited to functions but largely ignored, free to observe and make connections. She had found allies in Janet Murphy and William Davis, 2 human communication officers assigned to the main Council Earth headquarters in Geneva. Both had access to transmission systems and had learned to understand the Council's primary language. The 3 met in a small apartment Janet maintained in the city, far from Council monitoring systems. I've been recording internal communications, Janet said, activating a small device that projected alien text with a translation below. The Council species don't think we can understand their language yet. They're not careful about what they say around us. What have you found? Allison asked. Janet pointed to specific messages. They call us the quick-breeding laborers when they think we can't understand, and Earth is referred to as temporary acquisition in their internal communications. William added, they've done this before, dozens of times. Species get absorbed, stripped of resources, then abandoned once they're no longer useful. Allison felt a chill despite the warm room. We need more. We need to understand their full plan. There's more, Janet said grimly. Have you heard about the mining engineer in Australia? Eric Thompson? Allison shook her head. He discovered that the Council's mining methods are deliberately wasteful. He developed better techniques, and now he's been arrested for unauthorized technological development. His trial is scheduled for next week at the orbital station. William pulled up news footage of Eric's arrest. He's not the only one. Scientists, engineers, even teachers who question Council methods are being reassigned. Some disappear entirely. Allison had suspected something like this, but seeing the evidence made her stomach turn. We need to make contact with others who see what's happening. Not just humans. Other species, too. Over the next month, Allison carefully approached potential allies. A Volsri security officer who seemed less robotic than his peers. A Koresh technician who had made improvements to Earth's communication systems that weren't in the Council handbook. Slowly, she built a network of those who questioned the Council's authority. She learned that the Volsri had once been a proud, warrior culture before centuries of Council rule had reduced them to security guards and manual laborers. The Koresh had been brilliant engineers who now only maintained ships they were forbidden to redesign. Through this network, Allison managed to arrange a meeting with Shura, a Volsri elder who had served the Council for over a century. They met in the maintenance level of the Geneva headquarters, a rare blind spot in the surveillance system. Shura's scales had faded with age, but his eyes remained sharp. You are not the first to question, human. Every species does at first. What happens to those who keep questioning? Allison asked. They are fragmented, the Volsri said sadly. The Council takes your strongest traits and reduces them to services while suppressing everything else about your culture. For us, it was our strength. For the Koresh, their technical minds. For humans, our adaptability, Allison finished. Our ability to innovate under pressure. Shura nodded slowly. You understand quickly. This is why they fear your kind. Most species take generations to see the truth. What happened to Eric Thompson, the mining engineer? He has been sentenced to neural recalibration, Shura said gravely. They will remove his will to question, his creativity. He will return to work, but not as the same man. Allison felt rage building inside her. When will they do this? 3 days from now. He is held on the orbital station. Allison stood, decision made. I need to get a message to my network. We're moving up our timeline. As she left the meeting, Allison's mind raced with plans. Humanity wouldn't just provide obedience to their new galactic overlords. It was time to give them fire. The Council orbital station hung above Earth like a gleaming metal moon. Inside, Eric Thompson sat alone in a holding cell. The walls were smooth white with no visible door once it had closed behind him. He had been here for 3 days, seeing only the Council guards who brought him food and the medical staff who performed tests on him. They had explained what would happen. Neural recalibration, they called it. A simple procedure to correct his disruptive tendencies. Eric knew what it really meant. They would take away the parts of him that questioned, that created, that improved. They would leave a shell that obeyed. A light pulse in the wall indicated someone was coming. Eric stood, expecting another medical exam. Instead, the wall slid, open to reveal a Volsri security guard, the large reptilian being motioned for Eric to follow without speaking. Where are we going? Eric asked. The procedure wasn't scheduled until tomorrow. The Volsri made a quick hand gesture for silence. Something felt different about this guard. He moved quickly but carefully, checking each corridor before proceeding. This wasn't standard protocol. They entered a maintenance shaft, climbing down, several levels. The Volsri finally spoke in a hushed voice. Friends sent me. Commander West says hello. Eric nearly stumbled on the ladder. Allison West, from the Defense Coalition? Talk later, the Volsri said. Move now. They reached a small, docking bay that appeared inactive. A service ship designed for station repairs waited with its hatch open. Inside, a human woman worked on the control panel. "Cutting security feeds now," she said without looking up. "We've got 8 minutes before the system resets." The Volsri pushed Eric toward the ship. "Go. Return to Earth. Find the resistance." "You're not coming?" Eric asked. The guard shook his massive head. "I stay. Less suspicious if only the human is missing. They expect your kind to cause trouble." 7 minutes later, the service ship detached from the station. The woman piloting it navigated away using minimal power, letting the ship drift naturally before engaging engines once they were beyond immediate detection range. "I'm Carol," she said finally. "Former NASA pilot before the Council took over our space program. Now I run technical equipment to the station 3 times a week. Eric Thompson." "I know who you are," Carol said. "Your mining innovations started something. People are testing your methods across every extraction site on Earth. The Council can't arrest everyone." The ship entered Earth's atmosphere under cover of a scheduled supply return. They landed in a remote area of Colorado, where a ground vehicle waited. Carol gave Eric a small communication device. "This will lead you to a safe location. Commander West will contact you there." 3 days later, Eric found himself in a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. What had once been a military bunker was now the heart of human resistance. Scientists and engineers worked at stations filled with modified Council technology. Dr. Paul Martinez greeted Eric at the entrance. "The mining engineer, good to finally meet you. Your work on extraction efficiency was brilliant." "How is all this possible?" Eric asked, looking around the busy facility. "The Council monitors everything." Paul smiled. "Not as well as they think. Come, let me show you what we've been doing." He led Eric through the facility, explaining as they walked. "The Council builds everything to be perfect and unchangeable. They create technology that does exactly what it's designed for, nothing more. But humans." They stopped at a large workstation where several people gathered around what looked like a standard Council communicator, except it was partially disassembled with additional components attached. "Humans repurpose," Paul continued. "We improvise. We see a hammer and think of 100 uses beyond driving nails." He picked up the modified communicator. This was designed to send and receive messages within Council parameters. We've modified it to also infiltrate and manipulate other Council systems. "Is that how you got me out?" Eric asked. "Part of it. We've got a network now. Humans and other species who see the Council for what they really are. Commander West has been building it for months." As if summoned by her name, Allison West entered the room. She looked different from the military. Commander Eric had seen on news feeds, dressed in civilian clothes, hair longer but with the same intense focus in her eyes. "Mr. Thompson," she said, extending her hand. "Glad to see our extraction was successful." "Thanks to you," Eric replied, shaking her hand. "Though I'm still not sure why I was worth the risk." "Your work exposed a fundamental truth about the Council," Allison said. "They don't want to help us advance, they want us dependent. Your mining techniques proved that." She led Eric to a central planning area where maps and diagrams covered the walls. "We've been documenting every aspect of Council control. Their bases, their resource extraction, their information systems. And we've found patterns." Eric studied the displays. "What's the plan?" "We can't fight them directly. Their technology is too advanced." "We don't have to fight them directly," Allison said. "We just need to show people the truth." She explained that over the past 6 months, small accidents had been occurring at Council facilities across Earth. Power fluctuations, communication outages, mysterious equipment failures. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to create confusion. "These weren't random," Allison said. "Each was a test of our capabilities and a chance to plant modifications in their systems." Paul added, "Every piece of Council technology has a basic design flaw. It assumes users will only use it as intended. They can't imagine why anyone would want to modify their perfect systems." A young woman called Janet approached with a tablet. "We're ready for the broadcast test. All systems are positioned." Allison nodded. Good. And our friend in orbit? Krell is standing by at the communication hub, Janet confirmed. Eric looked between them. Broadcast? What broadcast? Allison's expression hardened. The Council operates in shadows. They keep species isolated from each other. They control what information we receive. It's time to change that. She led Eric to a large monitor that showed a video feed of High Minister Zorax in conversation with other Council leaders. The audio was in the alien language, with translation, displayed below. The human problem exceeds projected models, Zorax was saying. Their reproductive and innovation rates are concerning. The resource extraction timeline must be accelerated before they develop sufficient understanding of our systems. Eric watched in horror as the Council leader continued. Once Earth is depleted to acceptable levels, the human population will be dispersed among labor colonies. Their tendency toward resistance makes them unsuitable for preservation as a cultural unit. Where did you get this? Eric asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We have allies everywhere now, Allison said. This was recorded last week in the Council's main chamber. They don't believe we can access their private communications. Paul pointed to a countdown on another screen. In exactly 48 hours, this recording and others like it will broadcast to every communication device on Earth. Everyone will see the Council's true plans. The Council will try to stop it, Eric said. Of course they will, Allison agreed. But we've built redundancies into the system, and the broadcast will end with a message from you. From me? Why me? Because you proved the Council can be challenged. You showed that human innovation can overcome their controls. People need a symbol, Eric. They need to know resistance is possible. 2 days later, Eric stood before a camera in the hidden facility. He wore simple clothes, nothing that would indicate his importance. Behind him was a plain wall with a single symbol, a flame. My name is Eric Thompson, he began. 3 weeks ago, I was arrested for finding a better way to mine resources from Earth. The Council called it unauthorized technological development. I call it being human. He spoke briefly about his discoveries, about the Council's true intentions, for Earth and humanity. He kept his words simple but powerful. For thousands of years, humans have faced challenges and overcome them through innovation and courage. The Council wants to take those qualities from us. They want obedient servants, not partners. Eric paused, looking directly into the camera. The Galactic Council wanted obedience. Humanity will give them fire. Across Earth, on every screen and communication device, the broadcast played. Council forces scrambled to block the signal, but it kept reappearing from different sources. In homes and workplaces, on streets and in Council facilities, humans watched the truth unfold before them. And in orbit, a Koresh maintenance worker named Krell ensured the broadcast reached beyond Earth, spreading to other worlds under Council control. The flame had been lit. Now it would spread. Within weeks of the broadcast, Earth became ungovernable for the Council. Their once respected representatives now found their directives ignored. Their threats meant nothing against the growing wave of human defiance. Council ships still orbited the planet, their weapons a constant reminder of their technological superiority. But on the ground, control was slipping away. Allison West stood before a table of resistance leaders in the underground facility. Maps and diagrams covered the surfaces showing Council installations across Earth and in orbit. We need to be smart about this, she said, looking at each person in turn. The Council is still far more powerful than us. If we fight them directly, we lose. So what do? Asked Carol, the pilot who had helped rescue Eric. We can't just keep hiding. Allison pointed to the maps. We don't fight them head-on. We fight them like humans always fight superior forces, asymmetrically. She outlined what she called the Promethean strategy, a 3-phase plan to undermine Council control without triggering an overwhelming military response. The first phase was already underway, technological divergence. Paul's team had been distributing modification kits that allowed Council technology to be repurposed in ways its creators never imagined. Communication devices became system infiltrators. Medical scanners were transformed into security disruptors. The Council's standardized, inflexible technology became their vulnerability against human creativity. They expect us to either use their tech as designed or to reject it entirely, Paul explained to a group of engineers. They can't imagine that we would take their perfect systems and improve them. The second phase was alliance building. Through Krell and other contacts, Allison established communication with resistance movements among other subjugated species. The Volsri provided physical security for human operators working in Council zones. The methodical Brack shared their encyclopedic knowledge of Council infrastructure. Even the ancient Tulari, reduced to ceremonial roles after millennia under Council rule, offered their expertise in psychology and social manipulation. For centuries, we each fought alone and failed, Allison told a gathering of multi-species resistance leaders. They kept us separate because together, we are greater than the sum of our parts. The third phase, the most audacious, was the Prometheus Protocol. Eric oversaw this critical element of the plan, creating backdoors in every piece of Council technology. Each failure and malfunction over the previous months had actually been an opportunity to insert custom programming, building toward a system-wide vulnerability. 1 month after the worldwide broadcast, Council ships detected unusual energy signatures from Earth's major cities. Scanning the planet, they found humans gathering in large groups, seemingly preparing for confrontation. Council security forces were deployed to disperse these gatherings. In Geneva, thousands of people stood in the main square facing the Council headquarters. They carried no weapons, just small devices built from modified Council technology. Council security formed a line between the crowd and the building. "This is an unauthorized gathering," announced the Council commander through amplified speakers. "Disperse immediately, or we will use necessary force." The crowd did not move. Instead, they activated their devices simultaneously. Every Council system in the area suddenly shut down. Weapons, communication equipment, even the doors to their own building stopped responding. The security forces found themselves powerless. Similar scenes played out across Earth. Council technology everywhere began to fail, controlled by the humans who had supposedly only been given access to the most basic functions. The modified devices sent cascading shutdown commands through the Council's own networks. In orbit, High Minister Zorax received urgent communications from Council bases worldwide. He ordered his battle fleet to enter Earth's atmosphere and restore order through a show of force. The massive Council warships descended toward major cities. Zorax stood on the command deck of the lead vessel, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. He expected the sight of the battle fleet to crush this human rebellion before it gained further momentum. But as the ships entered the atmosphere, their navigation systems suddenly reported errors. The carefully plotted descent paths scrambled. Engines adjusted automatically, putting the ships into a stable orbit rather than continuing their descent. "What is happening?" Zorax demanded. "Unknown, High Minister," replied the ship's commander. "All systems show functional, but are not responding to commands." Zorax attempted to contact Council headquarters, but found the communication system locked. When it finally activated, the screen showed not the Council control center, but the face of Eric Thompson. "High Minister Zorax," Eric said calmly. "Your ships are currently held in a safe orbit by their own navigation systems. We have no desire to harm your people." "What is the meaning of this?" Zorax demanded. "How have you accessed this channel?" "The same way we've accessed all your systems," Eric replied. "You gave us technology but expected us only to use it as you instructed. That's not how humans work." On the command deck, screens began displaying images from dozens of worlds. Council mining operations stripping planets of resources, species reduced to servitude, the true nature of the peaceful Federation exposed for all to see. "These broadcasts are being transmitted on all frequencies throughout Council space," Eric explained. "Every being under your control is seeing the truth." The message that followed was simple. "To all beings under Council rule, your masters are not all-powerful. They are not infallible. Today, humans and our allies demonstrate this truth. Tomorrow, we invite you to join us in remembering who you were before the Council made you small." For 3 days, the Council fleet remained trapped in orbit, unable to advance or retreat. On the ground, humans and their alien allies took control of every council facility. There was surprisingly little violence. Most council representatives, seeing their technology and therefore their power neutralized, surrendered without resistance. On the fourth day, Allison West led a delegation to meet with High Minister Zorax aboard his command ship. The council leader had aged visibly in just a few days, his color dulled, his 7 eyes blinking erratically. "What do you want?" he asked as they entered the command deck. "To humiliate us further?" "We want what we should have had from the beginning," Allison replied. "A true partnership, equal standing. Or if that's not possible, then we want to be left alone." "You do not understand what you've done," Zorax said. "The council maintained order among hundreds of species for 50,000 years. Without our control, the galaxy will descend into chaos." Eric stepped forward. "Maybe. Or maybe without your control, species will remember how to govern themselves, how to innovate, how to cooperate without being forced." The terms were simple. The council would withdraw from Earth entirely. Humans would retain all the technology they had been given, plus what they had modified. Earth would be recognized as an independent world, free to make its own decisions about future relationships with other species. "And if we refuse?" Zorax asked. "Then we keep your ships," Allison said simply, "and we continue broadcasting the truth about the council to every world in your empire." 3 weeks later, the last council ship left Earth's orbit. Across the galaxy, the effects of the human rebellion were spreading. Some species immediately broke from council control. Others, more cautious after centuries of subjugation, watched and waited. On Earth, Allison met with representatives from 24 formerly subjugated species who had been stationed on the planet. Many chose to stay, preferring the emerging human-led alliance to returning to council control. "What you have done is unprecedented," said Krell, the Koresh engineer who had helped broadcast the truth from the orbital station. "No species has successfully challenged the council in living memory." "We couldn't have done it without help," Allison replied. "From you, from the Volsri, from everyone who chose to stand with us." Krell's feathers ruffled in what humans now recognized as a sign of emotion. "Humans taught us something important. The council's power was based on making each species forget its own strength. You reminded us who we were." As night fell, Allison, Eric, and Paul stood on a hilltop overlooking the lights of the city below. Above them, stars filled the sky. No longer distant, unreachable points of light, but places where allies and friends might be found. "What now?" Eric asked, looking up at the stars. "Now we build something better," Allison said. "Not an empire, not a hierarchy, something new." Paul smiled. "The council wanted obedience, we gave them fire instead. And not just to burn their system down," Eric added, "but to light the way forward." 3 years passed since the day humanity showed the galaxy that the Galactic Council was not all-powerful. The once mighty council now existed only as a shadow of its former self. Several member species immediately broke away upon seeing the weakness of their former masters. Others remained, preferring the stability of the known hierarchy to the uncertainty of freedom. The newly constructed Unity Tower in Geneva stood where a council administrative building once dominated the skyline. Unlike the cold utilitarian council architecture, the Unity Tower incorporated design elements from 24 species. Curved glass reflected sunlight during the day and glowed softly at night, a beacon visible for miles. Inside the main conference chamber, Allison West adjusted her formal jacket. Gone was the military uniform, replaced by the simple blue and silver of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Her title now was Ambassador West, Earth's primary representative to the new galactic community. "The Tulari delegation is arriving, Ambassador," said her assistant. Allison nodded. "Show them in, please." The Tulari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Under council rule, they had been reduced to ceremonial roles, their once great civilization forgotten by most. Now their delegation entered with quiet dignity. Unlike most species, they were close to human in appearance, though their skin had a faint purple tone, and their eyes were entirely silver. "Ambassador West," said the Tulari leader, bowing slightly. "We bring greetings from our homeworld." "Elder Voss," Allison replied, returning the gesture. "Earth welcomes you and your people." They sat at the round table. No head position, no hierarchy. This was the first principle of what was now called the Free Worlds Alliance, a collaborative network of 27 formerly subjugated species who had broken from Council control. "Our scientists have reviewed the atmospheric restoration proposal," Elder Voss said. "We believe our ancient techniques combined with human adaptations could accelerate the healing of your planet's atmosphere by 30%. That would be a welcome improvement," Allison said. "The damage from the Council's hasty resource extraction left scars that will take generations to heal." Their discussion continued for an hour, focusing on cooperative projects between their worlds. As the meeting concluded, Elder Voss paused at the door. 3 years ago, my people had resigned ourselves to slow extinction as the Council's living museum pieces. Now we rebuild, we create again. His silver eyes fixed on Allison. Humanity did not just free itself. You freed all of us. After the Tulari departed, Allison took the elevator to the observation deck on the top floor. The view stretched across Lake Geneva to the distant mountains. Paul Martinez was already there looking out at the view. "How was the meeting?" he asked as she joined him. "Productive. The Tulari atmospheric techniques will help with the pollution problems in Asia and North America." She leaned against the railing. "How are things at the exchange?" Paul now led the multi-species technology exchange, where scientists from a dozen worlds worked together, each bringing their unique evolutionary perspectives to shared problems. "Fascinating," Paul said, his eyes lighting up as they always did when discussing his work. "The Kuresh approach to quantum mechanics is completely different from ours. They see patterns we miss entirely, and the Volsri understanding of structural engineering is changing how we build everything." Allison smiled. "The Council built a stagnant empire by forcing everyone to think the same way. We're building something stronger by embracing our differences," Paul finished. Their conversation was interrupted by Allison's communication device. "Ambassador, Director Thompson's ship is preparing for departure. He asked if you would join the observation team." Allison checked the time. "Tell him I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Allison and Paul stood in the launch control center of Earth's new spaceport. Through the massive windows, they could see humanity's first independently built starship. Unlike the utilitarian Council vessels, it incorporated elements from all allied species, Volsri structural reinforcement, Kuresh navigation systems, Tulari environmental design, and human adaptability at its core. On the main monitor, Eric Thompson's face appeared. He wore the uniform of the Earth Exploration Directorate, the captain's insignia on his collar. "Ambassador West," he said formally, then broke into a smile. "Didn't think you'd make it." "I wouldn't miss this," Allison replied. "How does she feel?" "Like a dream," Eric said. "The Kuresh propulsion system responds twice as fast as the Council models, and the Tulari life support creates the most natural feeling atmosphere I've ever experienced on a ship." Paul leaned toward the microphone. "Just remember to run the diagnostic sequence we discussed before engaging the jump drive for the first time." "Yes, Doctor," Eric said with mock seriousness. "We have your checklist posted in 3 different locations." The launch controller interrupted. "Final clearance granted, Director Thompson. You are go for departure." Eric nodded, his expression becoming more serious. "Thank you, Control." He looked back at Allison. "Any final words for the log, Ambassador?" Allison thought for a moment. 3 years ago, we discovered we weren't alone in the universe. We also discovered that the stars held dangers as well as wonders. Today, we take our first true steps into that universe, not as servants or subjects, but as free people reaching out to other free people. Eric smiled. "Poetic as always, Allie." "Safe journey, Eric," she replied. "Make us proud." The connection ended, and all eyes turned to the ship itself. Allison watched as the final preparations were completed. The ship looked nothing like Council vessels. It had a certain elegance to its design, but also a clear sense of purpose. As the engines engaged, Allison noticed something she hadn't seen before, the name painted on the hull. Prometheus, she said softly. Eric's idea, Paul explained. From the old Earth myth. The Titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Allison nodded. Perfect. The ship rose smoothly from the launch pad, gathering speed as it climbed. Within minutes, it was just a bright point of light in the blue sky, then nothing visible at all. In the control room, applause broke out as telemetry confirmed successful orbit. The ship's destination was the outer rim of what had once been Council space, where newly independent worlds were establishing their own identities after centuries of control. Later that evening, Allison stood again at the observation deck of Unity Tower. The first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, the Prometheus was carrying the fire of human innovation and defiance to other worlds. Her communication device signaled an incoming message from the ship. It was from Lisa Bailey, the Prometheus's pilot and Eric's second-in-command. Ambassador, we've cleared Earth orbit and all systems are functioning perfectly. Director Thompson asked me to send you this message. The Council wanted obedience. We're giving the galaxy something better. Allison smiled as she looked up at the stars. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and discovered its greatest strength. Not just the will to resist oppression, but the power to inspire others to do the same. The Council had wanted obedience from Earth. Instead, humanity had given the galaxy fire, not to burn it down, but to light the way forward. As night fell completely, more stars appeared in the sky. No longer distant, unreachable points of light, but places where allies and friends worked to build something new from the ashes of Council control. Allison thought of all the people who had made this possible. Eric, Paul, Janet, William, Carol, Krell, Shura, and countless others across multiple worlds. The flame they had lit would never be extinguished again,